When you reach for your phone to check your checking account, there's this comforting, almost invisible ritual that happens.
Yeah, we do it dozens of times a day.
Right. You pick up the device, the screen wakes up, it scans your face for just like a fraction of a second, and boom, that little padlock icon unlocks, and you're in.
Completely seamless.
Exactly. And you feel secure. Right.
Mm.
I mean, you were the only person with your face, so your money must be safe.
That's the assumption, yeah.
But, well, today we are pulling from recent data from DaVinci Cybersecurity to look at a rapidly escalating threat targeting both iPhones and Androids. And the mission of this deep dive today is to map out exactly how artificial intelligence is being weaponized to bypass the biometric security on our mobile devices.
Which is a critical thing to understand right now.
Right, because we want you, the listener, to understand the reality of the landscape we are actually operating in.
Because that baseline assumption, the idea that your unique physical traits guarantee your security, it's fundamentally breaking down. Yeah, we are observing a landscape that has shifted entirely beneath our feet. And in a really compressed time frame, it's being driven by this convergence of advanced malware and generative AI models.
I keep picturing your average smartphone as this high-security digital vault. For years, we've trusted the locks on that vault. We added layers, we added biometrics, fingerprint scanners, all that. But reading through these DaVinci reports, it feels like the locks are suddenly morphing. The attackers aren't even bothering to pick the lock anymore. They're just bypassing the concept of a lock entirely. So, I mean, are we looking at a cybersecurity arms race where the attackers just found a cheat code?
Cheat code is, honestly, it captures the severity of the shift perfectly.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. To ground this conversation in the reality of the threat landscape, we have to look at the sheer volume of the acceleration. According to that recent DaVinci cybersecurity data, AI-driven bank attacks have surged by over 400% in a very short window.
Wait, 400%?
Yeah, 400.
That is not a gradual linear increase. That is an absolute explosion.
It's unprecedented.
So to understand the specific malware out there, we first have to understand why this spike is happening right now.
Yeah.
It has to come down to a fundamental shift in speed and scale, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is AI actually doing behind the scenes to facilitate a 400% increase?
Well, a recent report forecasting into 2025 has identified 12,243 distinct financial brands as the primary targets of these attacks.
Okay, that's huge.
And that spans across 90 different countries. We are currently tracking 34 active malware families operating right now.
Just right now.
Right. And the catalyst for this explosion is really the collapse of the reverse engineering timeline.
Okay, break that down for me.
Historically, if a threat actor wanted to find a vulnerability in a mobile banking app, it required highly skilled coders. They'd spend weeks, sometimes months, decompiling the app.
Just staring at code.
Exactly, reading through thousands of lines of code, painstakingly mapping out memory allocations, all just to find a single tiny weakness.
Sounds exhausting.
It was. But today, large language models and AI-assisted coding tools can parse that decompiled code and identify mismanaged memory or logic flaws in hours.
In hours. So the timeline from identifying a target to developing a functional exploit has shrunk from, what, a financial quarter to a single afternoon?
Basically, yes.
Okay, so if the malware's mutating and adapting this quickly, how does the underlying mechanism actually work? Because we know defenders have to build a wall that blocks absolutely everything, while attackers only need to find one tiny crack.
Right, the classic asymmetrical warfare of cybersecurity.
Exactly. But if AI allows them to generate millions of variations of a digital crowbar every hour, how are they actually making contact with my phone's operating system in the first place?
This is where it gets really concerning. The point of entry has become entirely invisible.
Invisible.
Yeah. This brings us to a specific exploit chain currently targeting iPhones known as Dark Sword.
Dark Sword. It sounds like a sci-fi villain.
It does, but it represents a category of attack that fundamentally alters the threat model for the end user. And that's because it operates on a no app install and no click basis.
Wait. Let me unpack this.
Sure.
When we think of mobile malware, we usually think of a phishing vector. Like, I clicked a bad link in an SMS message, or I accidentally downloaded a sketchy PDF, or I granted permissions to a malicious app. Basically, I made a mistake.
Right, user error.
But you are saying Dark Sword requires zero interaction. How on earth are you supposed to guard against a threat when you don't even have to click "I agree" on a pop-up. I mean, it's literally like walking past a pickpocket on the street and your wallet just teleports into their hand.
Right. That's a great way to visualize it. The mechanics of a zero-click exploit rely on the background processes your device runs constantly without your input.
Okay.
So with a chain like Darksword, a user only has to visit a compromised website. The mere act of your phone's browser rendering the malicious page triggers the payload.
Just by the pixels loading on the screen?
Exactly.
If I just scroll past a compromised element, the device is compromised. Let's break down the actual mechanism here, because I think a lot of people struggle to understand how just viewing a web page translates to a full device takeover.
It's unintuitive for sure.
So, if I can offer an analogy, it sounds like receiving a letter in the mail, and you don't even have to read the letter, simply tearing open the envelope releases a gas that hypnotizes the mailroom clerk into handing over the master keys to the building.
That is surprisingly accurate.
So how does a web page release that gas into an iPhone?
So that analogy maps perfectly to the concept of a buffer overflow in a rendering engine.
A buffer overflow.
Yeah. When your browser, say WebKit on iOS, loads a web page, it automatically parses invisible elements, things like custom fonts, image headers, or script structures.
Stuff we never even see.
Exactly. The malware is embedded within those invisible elements. For instance, the browser allocates a specific amount of memory to render a seemingly benign image file. But the file has been maliciously crafted, so its header lies about its actual size. When the browser processes it, the data overflows the allocated memory buffer and spills right into the executable memory space of the device.
Oh, wow. So it overwrites the actual instructions the phone's processor is trying to follow.
Precisely. And once that malicious code spills into executable memory, it can run arbitrary commands. It grants the attacker a foothold, bypassing the browser's sandbox entirely.
That is wild.
It is, and historically, zero-click exploits like this were the white whales of the cybersecurity industry. Think of tools like Pegasus, developed by the NSO Group.
Oh yeah, I remember reading about Pegasus.
Right, they were incredibly rare, it cost millions of dollars to develop, and were strictly the domain of nation-state intelligence agencies. They were targeting high-value individuals like dissidents or diplomats.
Right, James Bond villain-level infrastructure. Not something the average person checking their savings account had to worry about on a random Tuesday.
Exactly. But AI has completely democratized that capability. Threat actors no longer need a team of elite vulnerability researchers. They just leverage AI models to brute force the discovery of these obscure memory mismanagement bugs.
Oh, so the AI does the heavy lifting.
Right. It automatically generates the exploit chains. It makes deploying a zero-click attack radically cheaper and accessible to everyday cybercriminal syndicates.
Okay, so Darksword gets them onto your phone silently. You visited a website you thought was safe. The invisible font triggered a buffer overflow, and now they have a foothold.
Step 1, complete.
Right, getting to the phone is just step 1.
Yeah.
But how do they actually get into your bank account? Because the banking apps themselves are encrypted. And more importantly, they don't rely on typed passwords anymore. I mean, I haven't typed my banking password in 3 years. The password is my face.
And that barrier is currently being dismantled by a highly sophisticated malware known as Gold Pickaxe.
The gold pickaxe.
Yes, it was developed by a Chinese-speaking threat group and targets both Android and iOS environments.
Okay, so nobody is safe.
Nobody. Once a device is compromised, Gold Pickaxe installs a hidden application, and it frequently disguises its interface to mimic local government services or utility portals.
So it sets a trap. You think you are verifying your identity for a tax document or, I don't know, a local government service.
Right.
And the app prompts you to look into the camera, blink, and move your head around to prove you are human.
Exactly. And the threat actors harvest those high-quality biometric scans, but they don't just use the raw video. They feed those scans into advanced generative AI models to create high-fidelity deepfakes.
Oh, man.
And we are not talking about the early glitchy face swaps you see on social media.
Not the funny filters.
No, these are synthetic video streams capable of perfectly mimicking the micro-expressions, the lighting dynamics, and the depth required to bypass the biometric authentication checks integrated into major banking applications.
Okay, I want to dig into the technical mechanism here, because this is where my mind gets completely blown. If my banking app asks for my face, it physically turns on the front-facing camera on my phone. It is looking for a live feed. So how does the malware take a deepfake video file sitting on a server somewhere and feed it into a banking app that is demanding a live hardware camera feed?
This involves a technique known as API hooking. Or,
Yeah.
sometimes called camera virtualization.
API hooking. Okay.
Once Gold Pickaxe has elevated privileges on your compromised device, it intercepts the communication between the banking application and the operating system.
Okay, it gets in the middle.
Right. When the bank app sends a request to the OS saying, turn on the front camera and send me the feed, the malware intercepts that API call. It essentially creates a virtual camera bridge.
Unbelievable.
It tells the banking app, here is the live feed from the camera, but it injects the pre-rendered deepfake video stream into that pipeline instead.
So the app is completely blind to the fact that it's being fed a recorded hallucination.
Exactly. The banking app processes the video, believes it is analyzing a live sensor feed of your face, verifies the geometry, and unlocks the account.
And the reports mention this malware is predominantly operating in Southeast Asia right now, right?
Currently, yes.
But the expectation is a rapid global spread. I mean, face swapping and deepfake generation aren't dark web secrets anymore. The open source tools are everywhere.
They are completely accessible.
But here's where it gets incredibly bleak. The source material drops an absolute bombshell fact. It states point blank that deepfake technology has officially caught up to and superseded mechanisms for biometric authentication.
It has. We have crossed the threshold where generative models can reliably defeat standard deterministic biometric sensors. AI has provided threat actors with the speed, accuracy, and power to bypass what the industry considered the ultimate unphishable security measure.
The irony here is staggering, honestly. Let's look at the philosophy of how we approach security for a second.
Okay.
A 2023 survey cited in these reports showed that 27% of people globally are already using biometrics to secure their devices and apps.
And that number is growing.
Fast. Another survey showed that roughly 60% of IT leaders in the U.S. expect biometrics to completely replace workplace passwords in the near future.
Right.
For the last decade, we were told to abandon what we know, like a password or a PIN, because humans are terrible at making passwords, and transition to what we are: a fingerprint, a retina, a face.
The what you are paradigm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We thought we were upgrading our security. But if Gold Pickaxe can do this, are we actually locking our most sensitive digital vaults with a key that hackers can perfectly copy from a selfie?
That is the core issue. The fundamental flaw in relying solely on static biometrics is that your face is not a cryptographic key.
It's just an image.
In the digital realm, your face is simply a data string. Once that data string is captured and successfully mapped by a generative model, it is compromised permanently.
Because you can't change it.
Right. You can reset a compromised password in 30 seconds. You cannot issue yourself a new face. When physical identifiers are converted into reproducible code, that core philosophy of what you are as a security standard begins to fracture.
So if deepfakes have literally beaten standard facial recognition, what happens now? We have to move from the problem to the real-world reaction. How are institutions fighting back against face stealing, API hooking malware like Gold Pickaxe? Because hearing all this, it really sounds like the bad guys have definitively won the arms race.
Well, the institutional response is frantic, as you can imagine, and we are seeing sweeping policy changes.
Like what?
The Bank of Thailand is a prime example of a major financial institution forced to react to the specific threat vector in real time.
Okay, what do they do?
They recognized the regional impact of Gold Pickaxe and implemented massive friction into their systems. They adjusted daily transfer limits, putting hard caps on large transactions, changed protocols for SMS communications, and most notably, they are now requiring mandatory facial recognition for major transactions and the opening of new accounts.
Okay, hold on. I have to stop you there.
Sure.
There is a glaring paradox in this response. If Gold Pickaxe uses AI deepfakes specifically to beat facial recognition, why on earth is the Bank of Thailand's policy change requiring facial recognition for major transactions?
It sounds counterintuitive.
It sounds like discovering the locks on your bank vault are fundamentally broken, and your solution is to add 3 more of the exact same broken locks to the door. I mean, is this just a frantic stopgap measure by an institution that doesn't know what else to do? Or does it point to a deeper strategy?
That paradox is actually the core of the current cybersecurity transition. To understand their strategy, consider a quote from Sharon Knowles, the CEO of Da Vinci Cybersecurity, which is highlighted in the report.
What does she say?
She notes, and I quote, "As the world transitions to new methods of cyber protection, there will be an uptick of what we all consider to be normal. We are currently making the transition to the highest advances in biometrics so that all of our devices can be protected and our private data can be secure."
The highest advances in biometrics, so they aren't relying on the old facial recognition.
No, they are deploying something else entirely.
So is this an upcoming war between deepfake AI and deepfake detecting AI?
That is exactly the battlefield. Standard facial recognition is largely geometric. It measures the distance between your pupils, the width of your nose, the curve of your
The
jawline.
physical shape of your face.
Right. And generative AI mastered geometric replication months ago. What the Bank of Thailand and the broader financial industry is attempting to deploy is highly advanced liveness detection.
Liveness detection. How does an AI look at a video feed and determine if the geometry has a living pulse behind it?
It's fascinating tech. Active liveness detection models analyze microscopic biological artifacts that current generative models struggle to render consistently.
Like what? Give me an example.
For example, they look for photoplethysmography.
Does that get a photo what?
Photoplethysmography. It's the invisible microfluctuations in skin color that occur with every single heartbeat as blood flows through the capillaries in your face.
Wow. The camera can see your heartbeat.
Yes. They also analyze specular reflection, which is how the specific light from your phone screen bounces off the wet, spherical surface of a human cornea, as opposed to how light reacts to a flat, synthetic rendering of an eye.
That is incredible.
They're looking for pixel jitter, temporal inconsistencies in the background, and micro-expressions that occur in milliseconds.
So the bank is using an AI defense system trained to spot the microscopic rendering errors of the attacking AI. It really is machine versus machine.
It is. But, as Sharon Knowles pointed out, we are currently in that messy transition phase. The highest advances in biometrics are not yet ubiquitous, and the threat actors are constantly refining their models to fake those exact biological artifacts.
Right. They'll eventually figure out how to fake a heartbeat.
Exactly. Which brings us to the most critical part of this discussion. What the end user, the person listening to this right now, can actually do.
Because I can't build liveness detection myself.
Right. You cannot personally patch your bank's liveness detection algorithms, but you can control the architecture of your own personal defense.
And the primary defense outlined in the source material is multi-factor authentication, or MFA.
Yes, absolutely.
But I want to elevate this discussion because you, our listeners, know what MFA is. We know it means using more than just a password. But in a world where Darksword can achieve a zero-click compromise and Gold Pickaxe can synthesize your face, is having your bank text a 6-digit code to your phone actually enough? SMS feels incredibly vulnerable if the device itself is already compromised.
You've highlighted the exact critical vulnerability in legacy MFA.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If a zero-click exploit has compromised the operating system, the malware can simply read the SMS code as it arrives. It can intercept time-based authenticator app codes if they reside on the same infected device.
Oh, because the hacker is essentially looking at my screen.
Exactly. This is why the defense strategy must evolve to hardware-based, phishing-resistant multi-factor authentication.
We're talking about physical security keys.
Yes. Devices utilizing FIDO or WebAuthn protocols. These are physical cryptographic tokens, like a YubiKey, that you carry on your keychain.
Right, I've seen those little USB drives, basically.
Yeah, and they operate completely independently of the phone's operating system. If Gold Pickaxe steals your face and initiates a fraudulent transfer, the banking system halts the transaction and demands a cryptographic handshake from that specific physical key.
So even if the malware has perfectly spoofed your biometrics, and even if it has root access to your iPhone, it cannot physically reach out of the digital realm and press the capacitive button on a metal key sitting on your desk.
Precisely. You break the chain by forcing a verification method that exists outside the compromised environment.
That makes total sense.
That physical separation is the only reliable firewall against an attacker that can perfectly simulate your digital identity. By employing multiple disjointed layers of technology, MFA acts as a definitive prevention tool, curbing these AI-driven attacks before the final payload executes.
Let's pull all of this together and recap the journey we've been on, because we've mapped out some incredibly complex and, frankly, intimidating territory today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We started with the sheer acceleration of the threat, the Da Vinci cybersecurity data, showing a 400% surge in AI-driven banking attacks. We looked at the collapse of the reverse engineering timeline, allowing hackers to spin up variants of malware in hours.
And we examined the invisible entry points, zero-click exploits like Darksword leveraging AI to find memory buffer overflows, compromising an operating system just by rendering malicious pixels on a browser.
And we saw how that silent entry facilitates the ultimate form of identity theft. Malware like Gold Pickaxe, using API hooking to bypass live camera feeds, injecting AI-generated deepfakes that successfully defeat the geometric facial recognition our banking systems rely on.
It is a stark reminder of the landscape.
It is. It reminds us that while the industry races toward AI-powered liveness detection to spot the pulse under your skin, your immediate actionable shield is hardware-based multi-factor authentication.
Taking your security out of the strictly digital realm and grounding it in a physical token is the most effective mitigation strategy available to the individual user today.
But tracing this evolution leaves us with a profound, almost philosophical question to mull over.
What's that?
Well, we spent the last decade believing the narrative that biometrics were the ultimate upgrade. 60% of IT leaders were ready to abandon passwords entirely, tying our access to the physical traits of our own bodies.
Right, what you are.
But if generative AI can perfectly mimic our faces, synthesize our voices, and soon replicate our fingerprints, well, knowing you can't simply reset your face the way you reset a forgotten password, what becomes the ultimate unhackable proof of your identity in the future?
It's the million-dollar question.
When the lock on the vault is morphing, and the thief holds a mathematically perfect copy of your biology, will we have to permanently regress to carrying physical metal keys in our pockets? Or is there a completely new framework for human identity, perhaps continuous biological authentication or cryptographic implants that we haven't even invented yet?
The definition of identity itself is what is actively being rewritten on this frontier.
It is a fascinating and terrifying space to watch. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Go audit your MFA settings, consider investing in a hardware key, and we will catch you next time.